nampak lah. Siapa yang tak apa nampak ni? It is the people who do not want to see straight lah for both films. So SEPET to me is a major turning point in Malaysian cinema because it has created. In fact, before the film was screened, I already put it on the internet. Here's an intelligent film that is going to create intelligent viewers. And true enough, through the feedback that I saw on the internet, not in the papers, because the papers you can't believe them. In the internet, there were people who hated it, there were people who loved it, and there were people who were somewhere in between. And there were also people who liked some, didn't like some, and they hated the ending. But in particular, I was quite surprised with one girl who wrote in, and then I took that out from Kaki Seni and put it onto the Malaysian cinema, that she was very angry at the end because the way the film was going, that they were going to get together, especially when the girl reads the letter in the car at the end, that maybe she will stop, she will go back, and so on. And then you find out that this guy, maybe he died or what, you know. And I think that made her angry. But then when she was going home, she was asking herself, why was I angry? And then she began to realize that she was angry because she got involved with the characters. That's something very difficult to do. Every filmmaker wants that. If you can only do that, you have got a hit on your hands. And SEPET will be among all those great films. And I've written about Rabun. It is about looking straight. And if you look at the opening scene and the last scene of Rabun, it is also, there's a similarity with the opening scene of SEPET and the opening at the ending. And normally in films made by thinking filmmakers, the first scene, the first few images are what the whole film is about. You check out whether it's Kurosawa or Ozu, that's how people tell stories.
So out of 10 ranking, what will you give SEPET?
Probably 11.
Wow.
Because I'm here.
Oh, you're right.
behind I'll say something else.
Okay. SEPET, plot driven, character driven. Which one?
It's character driven.
It's character driven.
Yes. And you can see that many of the things are being sparked. There are sparks all over the place. Tagore, the Quran reading, which is from Yasin, and then the poetry, something said very poetically by Jason at the end of the film. So if you look at there's a very clear understanding of the use of the language of film, which is something that you cannot find in 99% of Malaysian cinema, if you can call it cinema. That's our problem. So this is why I said that this film affected many people. They didn't know why, but it is because of it being constructed. Every scene is a construct, and this is what cinema is all about. So in author approach, the structure is still there. It is still a 3-act structure, except that it is not written the way mainstream cinema is written.
You were mentioning about film language. Now we go into film language. So far, there are no good books on film language. Internet websites, you can't find film language. So what is film language?
Okay, read my book, which will come out soon.
You've been saying that for
how many years?
How many years ago? Yeah.
Wanted to write that 15 years ago. Okay, language is like using words in a certain sequence so that people can get meaning out of it. The meaning is not in the story or in what we are watching. The meaning is being constructed in the mind of the audience. So film is not subjective. It is the audience who is subjective. So every one of us brings our own sensibilities, our intellectualities, our ideologies, and our background, and so many things into play when we are watching. For instance, if you rush to see a film, you didn't have time for lunch, and in the film, a lot of the scenes have scenes where they are eating. You'll have a different opinion of the film at the end. If you have someone who had a good lunch, he came to see this film, and he saw people eating, he would have a totally different opinion about it. So in 1912, this group of guys called Gestalt psychologists, they investigated how do people get meaning out of films. So they came up with this a lot of things that they put down on paper, saying that everything is organized and patterned. Back to film language, every shot is one unit, but the shots must be in relation. Shot B must be related to shot A and shot 3 as C, and of course these few shots are also related to all the other shots who are coming at the back. As an example, in SEPET, the opening sequence is of a mother and her son, and then we hear the VO of the girl. At the end of the film, it is a daughter and her mother, and we hear the VO of the girl. So you can see that this has been constructed in such a way that after you see the film, you feel satisfied because the gestalt is good. So the gestalt psychologist said everything is patterned and organized, and films are a very good example of this. If you don't have patterning and organization, when you come out, you feel, what happened? There's something wrong with this film. They cannot figure it out. That means the gestalt was not there.
Completeness was not.
Yes, the completeness was not there.
For Yasmin, to you, what is film language?
Actually, I haven't the faintest
Idea.
I suppose it's a way of telling your story on this medium called film, a way of rousing people's emotions and thoughts, I suppose, with this medium called film, and how you put things together. I suppose that's what language is, how you compose sounds. To start with, what is the etymology of language? I suppose sounds to give meaning, to make somebody understand you. I had never studied film, not in a formal way. I just watch. Sometimes when I'm watching, for example, I remember when I was watching Not One Less by Zhang Yimou, I was surrounded by sniffing Chinese who were crying. So I tried to remember the scenes that they cried at, and I was crying as well. So when I bought the DVD, I took it home, I rewound to exactly the right place where people were just sniffing all around me. And I looked and I thought, okay, from a story point of view, what's happening in this scene? And this scene is meaningful because of what happened before, and it will become more meaningful presumably because of what happens after. How did he shoot this? Where was the camera? Where were the actors? Who did he focus at? Did he focus on the person who was talking or the person who was not talking? All these small things that I had to go through because I had no film background. But it wasn't really a difficult thing for me because I was fascinated. It was just another means of making people feel what you want them to feel. So at that point, Zhang Yimou, along with the writer and all the filmmakers that were working with him, made me feel a particular way. And not just me, I was surrounded by people who felt in almost exactly the same way. And for me, he applied the right language, and so I studied it. So I steal the language of films that are hailed as art films. I steal from films that are hailed as B-grade films. I think there is something to steal from in any film. In fact, it's better to steal from B-grade films because people have forgotten them. So when you apply it and give it a new flavor, people say you're being inventive. Actually, you just stole from B-grade films.
Now, film is a very unusual art. It is the only art which takes from every other art and then it creates something new. And what do you call it is how do you say it? It is totally dependent on the cinematic apparatus, on technical elements to get that art across. And if you don't master this shot size, like in cinematography, you always have to decide camera position from the front, from the back, from the side, and so on. If from the front you are saying this character is okay, the moment you introduce a character from the back, you're saying something is wrong with this character, because we must see the face of the person, then only we are sure who is this person. So if you want to contrast, Claude Levi-Strauss, the structural anthropologist, he said that everything is made up of binary opposites. If you want to tell a clear story, you have to have opposites. If the hero, this is the way he must be dressed, this is the way he must look. If he's the bad guy, this is the way he must look. And Hollywood and Bollywood have mastered this. Then you must know about your shot size, whether you want to take a close-up or a long shot. Then you got to know your camera angle, above eye level, below eye level, above high angle, and so on. Then you got to know whether you want to move your camera or not. Ozu in Tokyo Story, there are only two places where he moved the camera in the entire 2-hour movie, and that is when they are walking outside. Otherwise, his cameras, the camera does not move, the actor do not move. How can you make a film like that? And he made a classic. Then you got to know about the lighting. If you have a person who is lit full, compared to a person whose face is only half lighted, you're saying something is wrong with this person, something negative. Now the audience doesn't understand this, but they can feel it, especially when you go from one shot to the other shot. This is why I say it's images, not shots. We are using shots, but we are creating images. And these images create something in the subconscious of the audience, and this is what you have to understand, which is the psychology of the audience. And in psychology, you have so many things. Persona is the first thing, what you present outside. And Eisenstein spoke about this as typage. He will not shoot a film unless he gets the character that he wants. Because the moment the character appears on screen, you already know more or less what this character is. A good guy, a bad guy, he's got problems on his mind, and so on. So this is why casting is very important.
Where I learned if you like the rhythm of my film, if you don't, then it doesn't matter. But if you do sense a certain rhythm, I learned a lot of the rhythm by reading poetry, and by watching paintings, and by looking at photojournalism. I find these three things affect me the most. I mean, also music. But the thing about poetry is there is a rhythm to the way things are said. That if said differently, if the meter is gone, if you like, then the feeling will go. Haiku, particularly, although I speak very little Japanese, I only can read from the English translations. But there is care being put while translating to be faithful to the rhythm of haiku or of poetry, and that is the measure of whether or not translation is good or not. So I learned from that rhythm somehow. And from painting, particularly from Rembrandt, for me, because I used to pick up a lot of books on Rembrandt. I learned about how why did Rembrandt paint and make that lady go near the window and then everything else is dark, and Goya, for example, why were the soldiers or the people who were wounded in one corner and then other things are above them? And I always felt that these were never by accident. I always knew that if they had changed things around, the feeling would have been different. Why did Gauguin put those two brown women in it slightly askew? Why didn't he put them right in the center? And I even did things like construct squares and make it go center, and I could feel that the feeling was different. So these are the things that go into the making of my film. Music also, and for example, it's always there's a B-grade film which I really like called where Demi Moore was the wife of Woody Harrelson, and he had to sell his wife for money. No. It's a B-grade film. And there's one part where he changed his mind. I no longer want to sell my wife. I know I've got $1 million that we really need in indecent proposal. And it's a B-grade film. You know what? It's a B-grade film. And then, of course, at some point he decides, what am I doing? I'm giving my wife away for $1 million. I know we talked about it, but this is bad. So he chased. He ran and on the way up the stairs to get to the roof of the building where the helicopter was, so that he can give chase. And of course, this very fast cut, handheld camera following Woody Harrelson, running after his wife in a panic. But in the hands, in the hands of an ordinary musician, this would have been fast-paced music to portray panic. But in the hands of a genius like John Barry, who has done music for Lion in Winter, Out of Africa, Dances with Wolves, Born Free, this was something else. He made this really slow, pining, adagio-like music to accompany this state of panic, and suddenly that the emotions will just treble, quadruple. And so I watched this scene over and over and over again. There's another B-grade film. John Schlesinger was, of course, once very great, then much later in his life, I think he's dead now, I think. Before he died, made crap films like An Eye for an Eye, about a mother whose daughter got raped and murdered, and he took up kung fu and whatever it is to revenge. But there's one scene at the beginning when she was on the phone with the daughter saying, I'm on my way back. The daughter said, hang on, Mom, I'm making the cake, but there's somebody at the door. And she opened and she could hear her daughter being beaten up by whoever came to the door. And I just was just watching, cutting back to Sally Fields and the daughter being beaten up, cutting back to Sally Fields, going down this road, saying somebody lend me another phone. And the way it was edited, was just nothing short of ingenious. So I watched that B grade film and learned what would be, how to perhaps heighten a state of panic. Even before you do anything else.
So it's not just watching, feeling and thinking.
And not just film. Because like Hassan said, film is such an eclectic art that brings together various art forms to produce a new art form. I think some people say that film is the ultimate art form, for now anyway, because it brings in everything. And I'm glad that I in the making of my films, that I have drawn experiences from all aspects of my life.